Hi everyone, this is the last lecture in the series of lectures about Buddhism. And once again, we begin our lecture with some statistics. Although Theravada Buddhist countries occupy the leading positions in terms of homogeneity of Buddhist population, as we know from the previous lecture, Mahayana Buddhists constitute majority in the Buddhist world, mostly thanks to China and Japan. But Mahayana Buddhism becomes extremely popular outside the traditional Buddhist world, especially in Western countries. Look at these celebrities. You must probably quickly recognize at least some of them. All these people are Buddhist converts or traditional Buddhists like Jackie Chan. What makes Buddhism so attractive in today's world? Probably what made it popular in Asia almost 2 millennia ago, the combination of sophisticated philosophy, mind transforming, spiritual practice, and refined artistic imagination. We've seen this map at the last lecture, but let's look at it once again. As you see, Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhisms cover huge territories from Kalmykia in the Volga region all the way up to Japan, Taiwan, and Vietnam. So during today's lecture, we will consider what was the reason for emergence of Mahayana interpretation of Buddhism? What is Tantra? And how was it incorporated into Buddhism? What are peculiarities of Vajrayana tradition of Tibet and Mongolia? And how was Buddhism assimilated into Chinese culture? The first question we need to discuss is why Mahayana interpretation is so different from that of Theravada, and is it different from what the Buddha himself preached? To answer this question, let us once again refer to the core Buddhist conceptions we've discussed in one of the earlier lectures. The Buddhist doctrinal core consists of the following original ideas. Anatman conception, or no soul conception. As you remember, the Buddha rejected the understanding of soul as a stable and coherent phenomenon, but imagined it differently as a stream of turbulent and unstable dharma particles. The ideas of karma, samsara, and reincarnation take their roots from Brahmanism, but were reinterpreted in Buddhism in full accordance with the Anatman conception. So reincarnation is imagined as a transformation, as transformations of the soul, resembling the turns of river flow. These turns are dependent on karma as a summation of bad and good deeds we perform during our lifetime. So karma keeps us in samsara, the beginningless chain of existence that can be stopped only if we take the Eightfold Noble Path. The path is naturally ensuing from the Four Noble Truths that proclaim that our life is full of sufferings that take roots in our desires and cravings, and in order to stop the sufferings, we need to get rid of our cravings, and the Eightfold Noble Path can help us in doing this. As a result of following the path, we calm down the turbulence of our dharma until we attain the state of complete calmness, which is nirvana. So how did Mahayana Buddhists reinterpret these ideas or elaborated on these ideas? Mahayana tradition formed up by the beginning of the Common Era as a result of creative evolution of the basic Buddhist ideas. Four ideas are fundamental for Mahayana. The first one is shunya or shunyata, which is emptiness of all phenomena. Shunyata or emptiness is simply a further development of the idea of anatman. Mahayana Buddhists claim that not only our soul, but also all existing things around us have rather conventional reality. means not really real one, right? Does not have a genuine reality, the status of genuine reality. In the terminology of Mahayanists themselves, all things are empty. This brings us to the idea of prajna, or an ability to insight into the true nature of reality. Prajna was an attempt to capture the essence of the Buddha's mind at the moment he achieved enlightenment. Sitting under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha realized that all phenomena are empty. Mahayana Buddhists believe that every Buddhist practitioner, after some rigid spiritual exercise, can acquire prajna that will help him eventually attain nirvana. But prajna alone cannot open your doors to nirvana. Another ability is no less important: karuna, which is deep self-denying compassion to all samsara beings, as an indispensable quality of any real Buddhist practitioner. Karuna is the other side of egoism and selfishness, the unquenchable thirst or cravings for pleasures that make one suffer. Another important conception elaborated by Mahayana followers is upaya, which is the way to integrate all physical and mental resources to achieve enlightenment. Because these concepts are not so easy to understand, let us consider them closely one by one once again. The Mahayana theory of emptiness expands the Anatman conception to all phenomena around us. The perceivable world is a combination of multiple perceptions and in fact is an abstraction, a network of ties and relations only. Another way to explain reality is to imagine it as a projection of our mind, a computer game run by our mind and having no real status. Reality is an illusion only. One can find analogies of this idea in quantum physics. In quantum field theory, a vacuum is filled with quantum fluctuations that disappear immediately after emergence. So the world may be described as a complex network of such wave-particle fluctuations that create perceivable phenomena. Another example is when you go to a cinema and see a movie on a big wide screen, you realize that what happens on the screen is not real things, but only a game of light and shadow. You understand that this is only a conventional reality, not absolute one. Even though this conventional reality may make you fear or laugh, may evoke your emotions, sometimes even strong emotions, still it is only an illusion. Mahayana followers proclaim that the so-called real things around us actually have the same status. They are not absolutely real. It's just a game of dharmas. They are fluctuations. And thus all phenomena are empty of their own nature. Emptiness, or shunyata, is not complete nothingness. It doesn't mean that nothing exists at all. We have to avoid this extreme viewpoint. This would be a nihilistic view, contrary to common sense. What it does mean is that things do not exist the way our grasping self supposes they do. Sanskrit word prajna consists of two terms. Pra means before and jna means knowledge, understanding. So prajna is an ability to see the world as it is, as an abstraction consisting only of ties and relations, illusory play of dharmas. It's ability to see the reality as empty. The nature of prajna cognition is intuitive. This ability is achieved through rigid meditation by means of which one insights into what is beyond the intellect and comprehension of the human mind. Karuna, or limitless compassion to all sentient beings. Together with prajna, it constitutes indispensable quality of bodhisattva, or a being which is one step from nirvana. As you remember, bodhisattva is the ideal for Mahayana, for Mahayana Buddhists. So karuna implies self-denial for the sake of spiritual progress of other beings. The bodhisattvas, therefore, are the type of people or beings who possess the qualities of prajna and karuna, but voluntarily remain in samsara in order to help other beings to achieve enlightenment. Karuna is an antidote against cravings. To overcome your selfishness, you need to cultivate altruism, an active position towards the needs of others. The idea of karuna was a response to monastic exclusivism of Theravada. In order to become Buddha, the Mahayanists claim, we need to think of others more than of ourselves. I would even say we need to think of others as ourselves. Mahayana teaching distinguished three types of bodhisattvas. King Bodhisattva is the one who, just like the Buddha Shakyamuni, comes to samsara and demonstrates to enlightened beings the process of attaining nirvana. This kind of bodhisattva is a leader who makes other people follow him or her. The Buddha Shakyamuni, who came to our world, showed how to achieve nirvana and attracted, other people, made other people follow him, was this type of bodhisattva. The next type of bodhisattva is the bodhisattva boatman. The bodhisattva boatman helps groups of people to attain nirvana and then returns back to help another group. So he keeps returning to help more and more people. And the last type is the bodhisattva shepherd. Such bodhisattvas give an oath to stay in samsara until the last unenlightened being becomes Buddha. Upaya is translated skillful means or expedient means. It refers to methods skillfully employed by Buddhas and bodhisattvas to assist sentient beings toward beings to reach enlightenment. Upaya can also be understood as a concept emphasizing that practitioners may use their own specific methods or techniques that fit the situation in order to gain enlightenment. Upaya is the development of methods of meditation and yoga to accelerate the process of spiritual growth. Upaya is the methodology of how to cultivate karuna and prajna in practical way. There's a story that is narrated in one of the classical Mahayana treatises. Once one man left his kids at home and went to the nearby marketplace to buy them some toys. Kids were playing at home when suddenly the house began to burn. When father returned back, he was terrified seeing how the house was a few moments away from collapsing. But his kids didn't notice that and continued to play. What the father did next is he called his kids by names and showing them the toys he bought them at the marketplace, the 3 chariots, made them go out of the house. So seeing the toys, kids ran away from the house a second before it collapsed. This story is interpreted in the following way. The house set on fire is samsara. So the house is samsara. The kids are all sentient beings in the house, the unenlightened beings. The father is the Buddha himself, who shows us 3 toy chariots that represent his teaching, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. So the Buddha has to be skillful and creative in application of various means to teach us how to understand the things they truly are. Tantra is an advanced Mahayana practice for attaining enlightenment, integrating meditative, physical, and psychic exercises to achieve prajna and to develop karuna. We can even say that Tantra is a kind of special type of upaya, right? For some people, Tantra can be the easiest and more advantageous way to attain nirvana. As a distinct phenomenon, Tantra emerged in the period of the Gupta Empire in India, the 4th, 6th centuries AD. Tantric Buddhism is often referred to as Vajrayana, or the diamond vehicle. So Vajrayana and Tantra are actually synonyms. Tantra was developed by Indian Mahasiddhas, or the Indian and Tibetan Buddhist ascetics who chose non-monastic lifestyle and practiced rigid meditation and yoga. So these Mahasiddhas of Buddhism, of Tantric Buddhism, of Vajrayana Buddhism, actually resemble those Shramana practitioners in the time of the Buddha. So they were trying to find other, more efficient ways to achieve nirvana. In the 7th and 8th centuries, Buddhism of Vajrayana tradition spread over Tibetan Empire. At that time, Tibet was a very militarist empire which conquered vast lands around it. So this form of Buddhism was patronized by Tibetan emperors until the empire collapsed. Despite the disintegration of the empire into small principalities in the 10th century and ensuing ups and downs of Buddhism in Tibet, Tibetan Buddhism managed to survive. Throughout the 2nd millennium AD, Tibetan Buddhism developed its monastic and non-monastic institutes. In the 17th century, a reincarnating Buddhist priest named the Dalai Lama becomes the ruler of Tibet. Until the mid-20th century, Tibet was the only country whose political and administrative structures were under control of the Buddhist clergy. The Dalai Lama is not only the secular and religious ruler of Tibet, but also was not only the secular and religious ruler of Tibet, but also an embodiment of celestial Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. It means that some bodhisattvas may accrue so much karmic merits that become enlightened deities. Avalokiteshvara, and you can see his image on the picture below the text, on the left side. Avalokiteshvara is one of such deities. You can see him here depicted in a traditional way with thousands of hands. These thousands hands are the symbol of this helping attitude, altruistic attitude of Avalokiteshvara. So he can extend his hand to any person in need and help him or her. So Avalokiteshvara is one of such bodhisattva deities, and the Dalai Lama is his earthly manifestation. After the Dalai Lamas came to power in Tibet, this made this country the first and the only existing Buddhist theocracy. Tibetans developed a unique tradition of traceable reincarnation. What they did is they developed the idea of reincarnation to an extreme form that doesn't exist in any other Buddhist country. Moreover, their traditional political culture was based on the Reincarnation Institute. So they essentially developed the idea, the teaching that some eminent gurus or teachers, right, masters of Buddhist teaching. After they die, they can reborn again. They can return to our world as a true bodhisattva has to do. And what Tibetans were doing actually, they were finding these deceased teachers, right, and finding them as a little babies, newly born little babies, and by taking them away from their families, they were raising these babies themselves to make them again great Buddhist teachers. This is the idea of Traceable Reincarnation Institute. These traceable reincarnated lamas were called tulku. And these tulkus might have not only a religious authority, but also a significant political power. Until 1959, as I already mentioned before, Tibet was ruled by Dalai Lamas. The present Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, who is the 14th in the line, had to escape from Tibet and seek for asylum in India. The 14th Dalai Lama is the most well-known and influential Buddhist teacher in the contemporary world. In 1987, he became a Peace Nobel Prize laureate for his peaceful efforts to free Tibet and for protection of human rights in Tibet. The Dalai Lama propagates the dialogue of religion and science and interreligious tolerance and harmony. On this picture, you can see him surrounded by his Muslim brothers during his traditional visitation to one of Indian mosques. In order to understand fully the Tibetan tradition of traceable reincarnation, of which the line of the Dalai Lamas is the most famous representative, we need to briefly discuss the so-called Trikaya, or Buddha's three bodies conception. So Tri means three and Kaya means body. Three bodies of Buddha conception. The idea of traceable, controlled rebirth is closely related to the conception of three bodies of the Buddha. It claims that enlightened beings like Buddha can exist on three levels. In cosmic body, своем космическом теле, right? In subtle body, and in physical body. The cosmic body of the Buddha, Choku, is the synonym of the Buddhist absolute. It's the ultimate reality, it's nirvana. When we say that the Buddha attained nirvana, it means that he simply dissolved in his cosmic body. In his subtle body, Lonchoku, the Buddha can emerge in dreams or visions to his practitioners. The best way to understand what is Lonchoku is to compare it with Eliade's idea of hierophany. So the Buddha's subtle body is the manifestation of the absolute in samsara. And the last level, the physical body of the Buddha, or Tulku. As you remember, the reincarnated lamas are referred to as Tulku, right? Is when the enlightened being, like the Buddha, takes human form to come to samsara and teach us, as it happened 2.5 millennia ago, right? When the Buddha Shakyamuni came to our world. Enlightened beings are believed to control the time and place of their rebirth, and sometimes even send hints to their disciples as to where they can find their new rebirth. Since Tibet had been seized by the PRC, the People's Republic of China, in 1959, the Dalai Lama fled to India, where he resides up to date. China tries to establish control over reincarnation process to promote their candidate for being selected next Dalai Lama. Apart from the Dalai Lama, there are a few hundred other Tulku lines in Tibet and Mongolia. The recent development is that a few Tulkus were found in the Western world. For example, the famous Hollywood film star Steven Seagal claims to be a reincarnation of a Mongolian Lama. Another Tibetan Lama is believed to be reborn as a Spanish boy. So who knows, maybe one of the next Tibetan Tulkus can be found in Kazakhstan as well. Now let's discuss the history of transmission of the Mahayana teaching to China and East Asia. The main corridor for the Buddhist transmission to China was the Silk Road. In the course of the first millennium AD, Buddhism reached Korean Peninsula and Japan. Unlike in case with Southeast Asia, Central and Inner Asia, in China, Buddhists encountered mature type of culture. The religions of Confucianism and Taoism developed very advanced philosophy and ethics with which Buddhism had to compete. So Buddhism had to as I said, had to compete with very strong rivals on the native territories. The stigma of the foreign belief system, alien belief system, alien religion, the religion of savages, was a sufficient excuse to launch persecutions against Buddhism a few times in Chinese history. Yet it managed to survive and incorporate into the unity of three teachings of East Asia. What I mean by three teachings, or Sanjiao in Chinese, is a unique combination of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism that characterizes the religiosity of modern China. It is hard to count the number of Buddhists in China, as well as the number of Confucianists or Taoists, as the majority of Chinese follow simultaneously all three religions. Or in other words, they follow Sanjiao, right? But the question remains, how Buddhism managed to penetrate the core Chinese culture despite its foreign roots? Why Buddhism was successful? The crush of the Han Dynasty in the 3rd century followed the protracted crisis of the Confucian values. As you remember, like with Brahmanism in India at the time of the Buddha, when a part of society was disappointed with conservative values that Brahmanism proclaimed, with the social inequality that was based on this teaching of Brahmanism. The same process took place in China in the 3rd century Common Era, when the Confucian values made many people disappointed in this religion, in this teaching. The Han Dynasty was overthrown by Yellow Turbans, the rebellious Taoist group that was marginalized after Han Dynasty demise. Here I have to say that sometimes I write the word Taoist with use of T, and in other places you can see Taoist starting with the letter D. I'm sorry for this inaccuracy, because both versions exist in today's Chinese studies, and I just don't have the unified way of writing this word. Sorry for that. Please do not be confused with that. Taoist and Taoist all means one word, right? The followers of the religion of Taoism. So Buddhism stepped into this political environment and social and cultural environment to fill the spiritual vacuum in Chinese society. This has striking parallels, as I said, with the time of origin of Buddhism, when Shramana groups questioned the formalism of mainstream Brahmanism and Vedic culture. In the same fashion, Buddhism offered Chinese an attractive alternative to their traditional religions. However, there were a few serious problems that put Buddhism in a rather vulnerable position in the traditional Chinese society. What kinds of problems? Buddhist monasticism, with its requirements of celibate didn't come along with the Chinese attachment to family values and filial piety. Chinese ideal of junzi, right, or a gentleman engaged in productive work, collided with the Buddhist monastic lifestyle. Begging was something barely acceptable in China. The traditional society in China was totalitarian in the sense that society followed the hierarchical model where subject had to obey the emperor, younger siblings had to obey the older ones, the children had to pay respect to their parents. Buddhism, with its egalitarian spirit, didn't fit well into this social order. The conflict between Chinese intellectual elite and newly arriving Buddhist ideas was inevitable. The new religion had to face the following accusations. Buddhism cannot teach people and prolong rule of the emperor. Building of large temples imposed hard labor on people. Buddhist monks are parasites. They don't produce anything, just beg. Buddhist monasteries work against family values and reduce fertility of population, which is too bad, right? Which is not in the spirit of Chinese culture. Buddhist Sangha is too independent and pay no respect to the emperor. Buddhist temples accumulate much wealth desperately needed by the state. Buddhism is a foreign religion, religion of barbarians. It is alien to Chinese civilization. In 574 and then again in 577, Emperor Wu of Northern Dou had Buddhist and Taoist temples destroyed and monks forcefully laicized to bring them to lay status. In 845, Emperor Wuzong of Tang Dynasty launched so-called the Great Anti-Buddhist Persecution. Sangha was deprived of its property, many schools declined and never recovered. In 955, Emperor Shizong appropriated all gold, silver, and copper from surviving monasteries. The anti-Buddhist persecutions in China resulted in the decline of the big urban monastery-based philosophical Buddhist schools that emerged in China before these persecutions. Only a few Buddhist schools had the chance to survive these reprisals. Chan Buddhism, with its small monasteries in remote areas and focus on meditation rather than on standard education, intellectualism and ritualism managed to retain its institutes. Another Chinese Buddhist school, Amidaism or Pure Land Buddhism, that wasn't very dependent on monastic centers either, and was practiced predominantly by lay believers, was also less vulnerable compared to the monastery-based schools. To protect their monasteries, Chan Buddhists developed a unique tradition of martial arts that survives to our days. So the way Buddhists defended themselves, right, through argumentation was as follows. Buddhists claimed that they pray for all sentient beings and the well-being of the state, thus in this way expressing their loyalty to the throne. Monks do not support their parents, this is true, but they pray for them, and it improves the karma of these parents in this and future life. Buddhist virtues and prayers bring all sentient beings to happiness. A resulting good karma is facilitating growth of economy. So through these arguments, Buddhists try to build the ideological foundation for which just justified Buddhist existence in Chinese culture and religious landscape. So Buddhism in China had to go through the painful period of adaptation to Chinese values. But it had much to offer to Chinese society. Compared to Confucianism, Buddhism had more developed religious ideas of liberation, salvation theory, right? Compared to Taoism, Buddhism had could offer to Chinese society a much more developed ethical system, an explanation of human nature and psychology. Unlike Confucianism, Buddhism had ideas attractive for a wide range of social groups. Unlike Confucianism, again, Buddhism was more popularly oriented, so it could satisfy the needs for any social group and social category in Chinese society. One example of this is so-called Pure Land Buddhism, or Amidaism. Mahayana idea of countless Buddhas that existed before and after the historical Buddha transformed into a peculiar type of Buddhism in China. The Pure Land Buddhism is focused on the Buddha Amitabha, a cosmic Buddha, which took a vow to help his faithful followers to take rebirth in his paradise. The followers of Amidaism focused their religious practice primarily on repetition of the phrase or mantra, Namo Amitabha Buddha, believing that this practice, in combination with sincere faith, will help them to be reborn in the Pure Land. The Pure Land Buddhism practitioners believe that once they are reborn in this Buddhist paradise, right, of the Buddha Amitabha, they will have no way back to samsara, right, to lower realms of samsara. There's only one way from the Western paradise of the Buddha Amitabha, which leads you directly to nirvana. Chan Buddhism, that developed in the 6th century CE and subsequently spread to the rest of East Asia. In Japanese, it have the form Zen, Korean Son, Vietnamese Chen, was very different from the Pure Land Buddhism. Chan comes from Sanskrit dhyana, or meditation, which means that this school makes heavy emphasis on meditation techniques. Chan Buddhism asserts that enlightenment can be attained through meditation, self-contemplation, and direct intuitive insight rather than through faith and devotion. What distinguished Chan were its novel use of language, its development of new narrative forms, and its valorization of the direct and embodied realization of Buddhist awakening. Chan Buddhists believe that ultimate reality is hidden behind stereotyped way of thinking, embodied in established patterns of words and phrases. Through sudden immersion of one's mind in the state of shock and ensuing spontaneity, Chan masters try to provoke her or his insight into absolute reality. Koan, or a riddle or short anecdote, story, dialogue, or question, were aimed to provoke the great doubt and test students' progress in Chan practice. Concluding remarks. In the early Common Era, Mahayana had undertaken a profound reinterpretation of basic Buddhist ideas. The conception of shunyata, or emptiness, and prajna, or insight into the true nature of phenomena, constitute the theoretical framework of Mahayana. The notions of karuna and upaya helped Mahayana diversify practical aspects of Buddhism. Tantric form of Buddhist practice evolved into an independent branch of Buddhism, Vajrayana, which is especially widespread in Tibet. Spreading along the Silk Road, Buddhism in the 1st-2nd century Common Era penetrated in China, where it had to deal with the developed philosophies of Confucianism and Taoism. After a few centuries, it have led to emergence of peculiar tradition of Chinese Buddhism, which occupied its place in the triad of Chinese religions, so-called Sanjiao. The Pure Land and Zen Buddhism take prominent place in the diversity of East Asian Buddhist traditions. Thank you a lot for your attention, and this is the end of the series of lectures focused on Buddhism.